Why everyone?
Great, now.
Social gathering, right? Hi, I'm Wendy Galhoff. I'm the director of the Wild Rivers Interpretive Center upstairs. We brought back these monthly speakers to talk about different topics related to anything outdoors in Florence County. So we're very pleased to have John Roberts here tonight. Just to announce for next month in July 18th on Thursday, it'll be about misunderstood mammals. So some of the obscure mammals that maybe we don't know a lot about are wildlife biologist from the DNR out of Crandon, Tom Carlson, will be here to talk about mammals. So we're looking forward to that one. Just a show of hands, how are most people hearing about this? Is it word of mouth? Or Facebook? Mine? Okay.
That's not news.
Are you not news? Okay.
Bulletin board.
So we'll keep doing all those things, and yeah, I guess exploreflorencecounty.com is our website for kind of tourism and outdoor things here in the county. So you can always check on the event calendar there, or our Facebook page is just Florence County. So you can like us and you can go there too. Just want to introduce John Roberts. I've known John for quite a few years. He's helped in so many ways with all of our Wild Rivers signage and brochures, like the waterfall guide back there, a lot of different activities related to helping to promote the Wild Rivers. They're a very special place that so many people in the state really didn't know about. I don't know, was it maybe 2012? We went to the first Canoecopia and 2015. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And we had a booth down there, and initially no one knew where Florence County was at all. So, and John and Larry gave a presentation at 1 year or 2 years. It was one for sure. On
Standing room only crowd,
Yeah.
it was like, wow.
Yes, paddling, and we've had so much growth as far as the last year, we did finally stop going, but we went for many years. Everyone knew where Florence County was, so it really was a big hit. Canoecopia is a big paddling trade show down in Madison, so that's known kind of nationally, so a lot of folks are there, but I've been honored to know John. He's a retired veterinarian, which my daughter's going to vet school, so it's kind of, he's been helpful in that regard as well. And he knows so much about our wild rivers, both from the paddling standpoint, but also the geology and the flora and fauna of the area as well. So I'll let John go ahead, and thank you for coming. If you haven't signed in, when you leave, please sign in.
Okay, as you found out, my name is John Roberts. And my wife, Nancy Osterberg, and I live in Aurora, and this is our canoe. We've done hundreds of canoe trips together from James Bay to the Rio Grande River. For the last 20 years of our adventures, we've been on the Pine and the Popple and the Brule and the Menominee Rivers of Florence County. And we have gone at night.
Okay, John, or
That's good.
we be able to see okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've gone in high water, and we've used a paddle or a pole. We've used a number of our friends and relatives. Gone downhill, over boulders, on road trips. This is a 10-mile road trip. Down snowy paths and then back up again. We've often gone together, often gone solo. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I plan to talk about wild rivers of Florence County. It'll be a little bit of history, and then know the flow before you go. What is wild river? And then new ways to experience our rivers. First up, we're going to talk about about a little history. I'm using this very nice 3-page chronology of Pine and Popple Wild Rivers history that Stu Boren. Many of you might know Stu, but he put this together and handed it out. I've used it in many places. I'll use it tonight for this little bit of history. Native travel and trade started soon after the retreat of the last glacier and existed for hundreds of years. Each of our major rivers had pre-existing native names, but a few stuck. Menominee River, Hemabanwan River came from native names. In 1700, the first French trading posts were established in the North Woods. Trapping beaver for pelts were be shipped to Europe, lasted about 100 years. We also have a residual of French names that stuck. There's Brule River, La Salle, Le Montagne, and Le Page. But the French word that stuck, that really I find fun is bull. There's little bull falls, and there's big bull falls, and on the Pine, there's just plain bull falls, and then down in the Menominee, there's bull rapids. There's a lot of livestock, right? No, it comes from the French word for bubble, spelled B-U-L-L-E, which basically is the same as our term we use, whitewater. Water full of bubbles. In 1840, there was a disputed conflict between Ohio and Michigan, and in order to settle that dispute, Michigan was given the UP, and Ohio was given Toledo. Lucky us. The federal government sent Captain Thomas Cram, he was a U.S. Army engineer, to survey and establish the border between upper peninsula of Michigan and the soon-to-be state of Wisconsin. The border he established follows rivers up from Green Bay to the Menominee and the Brule River and then Brule Lake. And then it goes as straight lines further west. Now, I want you to look at this lower picture on your right. Either the Pine River, right here, or the Brule River, and he came up, this is his map from 1840, could have been chosen as the border. Had the mouth of the Pine looked more inviting, the border would have been placed along the Pine and Florence would be in Michigan. But I want to read to you in his 1840, what discouraged him in his 1840 journal. And it goes, "This country has an exceedingly desolate appearance. All the timber which once was pine had been consumed by fire, as far as the eye can reach, all around every side. Prospects is one of a broken landscape of barren hills, studded here and there. There were scarred pine stubs with scarcely a living tree. We went up the Brule and we became Wisconsin." Today, if you go up to the mouth of the Brule, I mean the headwaters of the Brule, it starts out of Brule Lake. And on the west side, just before the waters begin flowing down the Brule River, there's a small recreation area and a trail that leads to a point where Captain Cram's boundary left the river and went as a straight line to Lake Vidozer and beyond. A little bit of history, fun little place to go to. In 1868, Charles LaSalle established a trading post at the confluence of the Pine and the Popple Rivers. LaSalle Falls was named after Charles LaSalle. Because river travel was such a common early way of travel, a sizable community developed around LaSalle's trading post to the extent that it almost became the county seat for our county. Soon after the arrival of the railroad into Florence, Florence became the county seat, and this early riverbank community at the confluence of the Pine and Popple dwindled and vanished. There's still some residual foundations and stuff, but very little left of it. In 1877, the first timber logs were cut on the Popple River, and by 1880, the Podunk Dam showed here, down here, and others were built and been constructed to improve log drives. There's a really good book, Fences in the Woods by Ken Hedmark. If you're interested in finding what life was like growing up in the area around Podunk Dam on the Popple River in 1950s and 1960s. A good read, fun, find out these history of where we all live. So the last log drive of the Popple River was in 1908. Fast forward a little bit. 1920. Construction of the Pine Dam began, and it first generated electricity in 1922. You can see in that picture on the lower left, there's a bridge across the river. If you go out there now below the dam, you'll see a big concrete block, and that was originally a road across the, I think, from Florence and down across the river. Okay, 1961 is when a developer proposed the construction of Aspen Dam to be built just upriver from Big Bull Falls. This is the Popple River here. The dam site is there. There's Big Bull Falls, and it would backwater in front of a lake all the way almost to Little Bull Falls. The purpose was to develop and sell lakefront property. This was met with stiff opposition. And the PSC, the Public Service Commission, denied construction permit for the dam. Aspen Dam was not built, the project wasn't done, and we have this beautiful stretch of river full of rapids, a couple falls, in a 5-mile stretch of the Popple River. Coming right on the heels of a successful effort to deny Aspen Dam and a similar proposal in the Peshtigo River. In 1965, as an outcome from that resistance to putting dams on these rivers, Wisconsin legislature passed the Wisconsin Wild Rivers Act. It was the first of its kind legislation that preceded and served as a stimulus and a model for the 1968 Wild and Scenic River Act, which is a federal river. The Wisconsin wild rivers remain unique and different from the federal wild and scenic river. Even though we have both of them in the state, our designations were special and unique in those ways. In 1997, the Pine, Popple, Brule, and Menominee rivers, along with many other rivers, were included in another groundbreaking designation. What you see here is the U.S. Interior Secretary, Bruce Babbitt, came here to Florence County with the Pine Dam in the background. He gave a speech to congratulate the utilities and the conservation group that hammering out an agreement. It was the first in the nation agreement on the management of sort of coordinated management of all hydro dams along the Menominee River system. It was a big deal. Beneficial in many ways. The two parts of that agreement are specifically worth mentioning. Okay, there's some 3 pictures here. And the picture that says 1964 Pine Dam, you can see where the dam is, you can see the flowage. And off to the right is part of the Pine where the water flows over Breakwater Falls and comes down into the Pine River. Off to the left of those is a diversion canal, which delivers a large portion of the water around the river, down the penstocks to the generating station, and then dumps it back in the Pine River. The 1938 picture up on the left there is very interesting because it shows no water at all was flowing downriver over Breakwater Falls. Between 1922, when the dam started generating electricity, and 1997, when the Wilderness Shore Settlement Agreement was finalized, dewatering of the river canal was regular practice. It spent much of the summer as not a river. It was a valley. No water in it. The Wilderness Shore Settlement Agreement eliminated this dewatering, Breakwater Falls, and established a minimum required release of 30 CFS, cubic feet per second of flow down Breakwater Falls, down the Breakwater Gorge, in order to support aquatic life and fish that lived there and died every time they dewatered it. Now, in the 2018 picture on the left, you can now see that the pipe that is there now is continuously releasing the required minimum flow. It does that, it shoots that water out all day, all night, every day, all year. For fish and aquatic invertebrates. Wilderness Shore Settlement Agreement also designated a date of removal for the Pine Dam in 2025. If all of the participating resource agencies continue to support dam removal. Now, that was really highly contentious issue. There was meetings and stuff going on over several years and some shuffling of things that happened, and currently it's still going on. It's a court case in Michigan. But for those of us who were involved with that and paid attention to it, there's just no expectation that the Pine Dam will be removed. And one of the things that really makes that evident is that in 2018 and 19, We Energies opened up all the floodgates. They lowered the flowage. I hope we all got to see that. It was an amazing year. They rebuilt the dam. They installed this minimum flow pipe. And they rebuilt and fixed the canal, the diversion canal, and the penstocks pipes down to the generating station. The dam is here to stay. But that bit of history was a big deal in this county. There is history. You can still see today, you can find remnants of such things along the Pine and Popple River. There's an old coffee pot. There's an old fishing lure. There are deadheads right here. These are logs in the river at the edge of along the bank of the edge, or elsewhere. They are standard length. They're squared off, cut off ends, and they were on there, dumped in the river to go down to the sawmills in Menominee, and they never made it. So here they are, 100-plus-year-old logs. Find them often along the rivers, and if you're really lucky, you can find the owner's stamp on the end. If that log has been submerged and never up in the air, you can see those stamps, and that's who owned the logs. They were supposed to go down to the mill with. You can see over on the bottom left is a riverside campsite that was closed when the river was declared as a Wisconsin Wild River, and because of that, there's no development. There's nothing unnatural about to be done to the banks of the river up to 150 feet and in some cases beyond. So you couldn't have a campsite there. But the old post that used to, it's filled with cell falls and the pine, it's still there along the river. You can see spikes from the dam, from the logging era dams that were built, and you can see dikes. This here, if you take this canoe down this corner, around the corner, you go down the South Falls. And so we stopped here. And over here, there's a dike built to keep the flow of logs and water going down the South Falls. They quarried it out right up there and filled in that whole island. And when they actually built a dam of sorts above Pine, above South Falls, and there's the moorings, the remnants of that. History also gave us this gem. Wild Rivers Interpretive Center has been a bonus to our community since it opened in 1992. There's history in the rivers also. For 110 years, the amount of water measured as cubic feet per second of water flowing past a line, a linear place line across the imaginary line, but the same place along the river at any given time. So cubic feet per second of flow flowing past this It's recorded. And that's present on the Menominee, Pine, Brule, Popple rivers. And this graph shows the historic average flow over time of our rivers, three of our rivers. The Menominee was right way up there. Hard to put on a graph, but our rivers generally, on average, have a spring flush. And there's a little bit more in the fall there too, but I've heard a lot of people say, well, you got to use the rivers in the spring when the water's coming. If you look at the Pine River alone, they all do this. Menominee, Brule, Pine, and Popple. The historic high flow, historic average, and the historic low flow just don't ever cross. There's like different events going on. It's a very volatile river. You can get really high flows. You can only get them so low when you get just spring fed flow left. And the point is, the average flow of a river is that white one on there. It really doesn't tell you much about what's happening on the river at any given time. For example, here's the 2020 this year flow on the Pine River in red. Well, it's high in the spring and then it drops down, right? Here's the one we had last night. There's the one before, and there's the spring down there. The average doesn't tell you much as far as what's going on the river. Unless you, so on any given day, unless you check the river flow rate, you're going out to the river to see something, do some fishing, do some boating or something, you could run into this. Or if you don't check, you could run into that. So the one sends you home fast and the other one requires you a lot of walking across wet pebbles. So before you go out to the river, check the current flow rate by either calling it the Wild Rivers Interpretive Center. We record it every day. Or there's websites, you can look it up, and it's all on this handout if you can pick up. If you really want to go and look at the flow rate, you can get the highs and the lows and the average and the current flow. It just changes all the time. Okay, there is more to flow of a river than volume. And I'm going to say that in this brief video that I'll show you in a minute, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the mechanics of flowing water in a river. All right, here goes. Did you catch that? First point is that gravity causes water to fall. We saw that. The external forces of gravity pulls water downhill. We know that. But it has some nuances. Now, our rivers drop from the north central highlands about 1,680 feet above sea level down to Green Bay. They go west and then south down to Green Bay, which is about 577 feet above sea level. They certainly have the gradient to go down. They're not always going down at a steady rate. Here's the breakwater falls right there, the second and third drop. The second point I wanted that you should have picked up on that first video is that water particles have an attraction to each other. This force is called cohesion, and it pulls water particles together, and it's constantly doing that. Constantly water's trying to stay together. It's the reason why we got drops of rain, drops of water on our windows, and why your straw, when you suck on it, the water continues to flow up. This is cohesive forces of water. If no other external forces like gravity or so on affect water, they tend to form sort of circular shape or spheres, what you see here. Where the slope of a riverbed is steep, the internal cohesive forces of water are overwhelmed by the external force of gravity. Water flows downhill fast and it flows down direct. It's straight. You rarely see water flowing straight, but when the steepness is, I got ahead of myself anyway. Where the steepness is direct, but cohesion will do some interesting things, and it will make water, a level of water, become higher than the surrounding. And water doesn't flow uphill, but you constantly see, this is above the South Pole, you constantly see big waves of water that's above the normal level of water. And this is the cohesive forces battling against the forces of gravity, trying to stay together, and when it comes down, hits a rock, it goes up and up and it stays together again. In the summer, leaving, and it goes down river, and it's a chaos, but it'll produce really high waves in the river and certainly along shorelines, and we're used to seeing high waves. It'll also be the force, the cohesive force that causes water to curve around rocks or to curve around logs, as you see here. Water does not flow in a straight line. It flows in curves due to this cohesive force. All right, so once again, if it's really steep, water flows down fast and direct. I know this guy. He succeeded. Where the water drop in the river is not so steep, the submerged bottom and banks of the river create a drag, frictional forces. And so it's constantly on the move from one bank to the next. And the fast part of the river will be the deepest. It may be in the center, not always. It goes over to the edge of the bank sometimes. It's curved, it goes over the other side. That line, here's a word you can use in conversation around lunch tomorrow. That line where it's the center of the river, where it's the deepest and fastest, is called the fallway. Remember that one. It's very useful. Okay. You're seeing it here, so I'm careful. That's good. Anyway, when the river is less steep, faster flowing water pulls by cohesion against the slower water. Friction keeps the water slow. Cohesion pulls against that. And the battle comes out as a complex interlaced dance of circles. There's circles up here, and there's circles that go this way, and there's circles that go the other way, all the way down the river. A river does not flow a straight path. It flows a dance of circles. The path it goes is really fast. We saw that, straight and fast, when it's entirely governed by gravitational forces. But as that gets less, you get less slope, it starts to curve. All rivers start to curve. It gets some bendiness to them. If it goes slower, you'll get some working in some braiding of the river. And if it goes really slow, you get this, an oxbow. And the river comes around and tries to get back to itself. It always does that. And really slow flow, the cohesive forces are working all the time. And this river is this is an oxbow. And it comes down around and get out and walk back. It's gonna meet this one someday, and Tony and is gonna be in trouble, but it'll take a long time. There's oxbows other than the pine. on the Pine River, other than this oxbow on the Pine River, and there's oxbows up on the Popple. They're very common. They're part of the way water flows. Okay, this is a really beautiful little spot. It's Little Bull Falls on the Popple River. And it looks pretty innocent. It's about this 2-foot fall. And it looks innocent, but it's deadly. It has taken some lives. It's also a fun place to play. We've tied on life jackets and dove in and swim around in those bubbly water. And as long as someone's there, they're gonna pull you out if you don't surface, you can play in these, but if you go unexpectedly, it's a dangerous place. I'd like to explain that a little bit because you do find these in rivers. Okay, so this is a complicated slide and we're gonna run through it, and so pay attention here. Cohesive forces, right here, talked about that, bends. Flow along the face of the rock until it's overwhelmed by gravity, and then it's plunging water straight down into the pool of water below it, creating a depression. All that water is pushing down, and that water gets lower than the rest of the river. On its way down, falling water captures air. And it also injects it into that pool down below. Now, air doesn't support people or boats. And air is not very welcome in the water pool. And so it's shot right back out, right up here. There's a big foam at waterfalls and such places of air bubbles trying to escape. And that pushes that level of water up. The water that dives below the air bubbles comes up down here, and that pushes it up. So the pool below the falls is higher than where this water comes out, and it's lower where the water comes down, and water goes downhill, so it comes back. So it sort of continually circulates, and some of these on high flow you can get those entrapments, those circular patterns of flow, and non-buoyant air for 6 to 10 feet away from the face of the fall. Don't go there and play without a life jacket and rope. All right, so this is an article that does really the best job of explaining very simple things and more about the physics, the dynamics, of what water does and why it does what it does. It's called Thoughts on the Flow of Water in Streams and Other Stream Things. And the website is on this handout, so you can go read it. It's a really, really good article. Okay. What about a wild river? Now, I love these rivers, and I have sort of been in the process of trying to understand them the best I can over these last 20 years. And I really regularly set off on these obsessions to understand parts of it. And I've done many things. In Florence County rivers, I've mapped them, I've recorded the lengths and times of canoe trips and bike back trips. I did tours and talks and temperatures and flows. I put paddling instructions on our rivers on the American Whitewater website. I documented 50 trips. I did 50 canoe trips on the 50th anniversary and put them all on Facebook. I had tons of fun on that most amazing year where the foliage drawdown occurred, and put that all on Facebook. I collected rock, not little ones, rock From every bedrock crop along the Pine and the Poplar rivers, and I studied the geology and presented on early Earth geology continental collision in Florence County. I put Breakwater Falls on the map. It seems fitting that I should finally try to understand, get around to understand what the heck a wild river is. What makes a river wild? So I did that. Much of it, some of it during the pandemic. In the Wisconsin Wild Rivers legislation, it simply is described a wild river as natural, free-flowing, and protected from development. It also says if it's going to be designated a state wild river, it has to be designated by the legislature, but that's not important. It's natural, free-flowing, and protected from development. That's where I started. Now, we all know that a moose in the forest is a wild animal. Hopefully these are not wild animals. We know what they are, they're pets. We also know that what a river is. It is, most simply, it's water flowing downhill in a valley. Is it wild? Is it always wild? Is it never wild? These are the questions I was asking. This is Breakwater Falls on the Pine. It's natural, it's free flowing, and it's undeveloped. It's a wild river. This is not. I don't think any of us would call this a wild river. It's water flowing. It's not a wild river. Doing this can be called wild. It can be called, wild and crazy. But it's not the same as calling a river wild. Different. I know that guy, he did fine, he's a really good paddler. So I read lots of books, and I have the best up here. You can look at lots of books, lots of articles. I read everything I could on wildness, including this, an article written by Gary Snyder on the practice of wild. And from that, I learned that wildness is not a place. Wilderness is a place. You can go there. This is the wilderness, Headwater Wilderness area of the Pine. It's a place. You can go there. Wildness and wilderness are not the same. Wilderness is a place. Wildness is something else. So what is it? I had about a year into this project, and I stumbled upon a documentary about Andy Goldsworthy. He's a sculptor of ephemeral art that makes fantastic art, and it blows away in the wind, or it's buried in the tide and vanishes, or the rain washes it off. And he said, a river is a river of stone, a river of animals, a river of wind, a river of water, a river of many things. A river is not dependent on water. What? Thought that way. What are we talking about here? He says we're talking about the flow. And it's the flow through trees and land, over rock, and animals. It's the flow of everything. I thought, well, here it is. Here it is. This is the way I understand rivers. I've been traveling on rivers for much of my life, and all of what I've experienced, and all of what I've read, this feels right to me. Back in 2015, before I'd even seen this or put effort into understanding wild, I wrote this as part of the speech down in Madison. The waters of a river do flow deeper than its bed, wider than its bank, and older, much older than now. And this is how I experience rivers. flow. The artist says the river is not dependent on water. We're talking about the flow. I say if the river ceases to flow, it's no longer a river, it's a pond or it's a puddle, but it's not a river. The flow of water is the very essence of a river. It's the one physical element to a river that contains access to the experiences of all other qualities of a river. All qualities of rivers are presented to you by flow. Okay, so wilderness is a place. Wildness is a quality of something. It's the experiencing of something that comes from the flow of water in a river that moves us. The experience can be transcendent. Beauty, beautiful, quiet, thundering, awesome, fun, mysterious, wonderful, alarming, humbling. It's not one of these, but it's all of these. The raging water and the gentle movements of quiet flowing water are both the source of experiencing wildness of a river. A river is not an artifact, a legislative declaration. It's not an artifact of human construct. The wildness of the river is more like an open avenue through which awareness and perception and understanding come. If you allow, it allows you to become aware, to start to perceive, to begin to understand, and more. Now, what Wisconsin Wild Rivers legislation does do is that through systematic and persistent management, the opportunity for you to experience wildness of the river is enhanced. Natural, free-flowing, protected from development enhances your opportunity to experience wildness. It removes obstacles, distractions to the experiencing of wildness. How you approach a river, how you interact with a river can also enhance your opportunity to experience the qualities of wildness. What I'm just going to say now here, I said in that slide there, you're going to say this sounds very meditative. And it is. It's not the only pathway. It's probably the one that's the easiest and available to us in general. There's lots of pathways. Annie Dillard, she spent a year on a creek. Ended up seeing fantastic things, wow things about the wildness of rivers. She got Pulitzer Prize winning for writing about it. Remember that wild and crazy kayaker in the picture? He accesses wildness in a different manner. He's really good at it. And he's in this zone where flow and his presence become everything. He's very attentive. And that's why he does it. There's other ways to access wildness. That sort of experience of wow that invades you at certain points of time along a river. I often, in my many canoe trips, sought it through endurance and sadness. Thoreau and Muir, they went to mountaintops. There's different ways to access this wow that we call. You saw the moose, you say, wow, it's a wild animal. And that's a simple phrase. And then you think, well, why are you saying, wow? There's something different about that. If you're experiencing, you're sort of taking yourself and looking at that moose and saying, whoa, you can do that. A river will do that. Has that ability to do that with you. So I'm saying, one of the tools you have to access the wildness of the river is talk less, think less, be alive, be aware, listen, sense, breathe. Open yourself up to the experiencing of the river. I often do a lot, I have done a lot of solo paddling. And it's the place in the river alone, perhaps for long journeys or short, that you experience this, wow, something extraordinarily beyond normal. Okay, I'm gonna go now and talk about here's the Little Popple River. It's very high flow rate. This guy's in there paddling down it, having a good time. He's in the zone. It's like, wow. Endorphins are running in his body and he's having a good day, and it's even more than we understand he sees. But is this, flowing down here, it's a very high river. Is it a designated state wild river? No. Is it a wild river? Sure, it's a wild river. It's wonderfully wild. What about Halls Creek? What about the delicately flowing backwater, Black Channel waterfalls on Breakwater Falls? What about the south branch of the Popple River? These are all wild, including the Oxbow. You can embrace all our flowing water as wild. The state designation is capital W, wild. Reality is small w, wild. It's there. These rivers allow you to experience wildness. So the wildness is a quality of something beautiful, quiet, thundering, awesome, fun, mysterious, wonderful, alarming, humbling. It's not one of these things, but all of these things become available. They become available for you to experience either the capital W or the small w of wild. They're equal in their impact on you. Okay, we're going to talk about new ways to experience wild rivers in Florence County. So fun stuff coming up. There are, of course, many existing guidebooks and websites. One in the middle is one we carried. This is a really good one. It's up in the Wild Rivers Treatment Center. That's not what I'm not talking about. It's the other stuff. So this book, Waterlog, was written by a man who did this. He swam all the rivers he could. And it captured the magic of an immersion in the liquid world, and it introduced the public, maybe not so much here, but certainly in England, to river swimming. Become a really popular recreational event. This book here, The Flow, is all full of experiences of river swimming. He does it and many other things. Talks about the flow. It's a very good book to understand the flow. Nancy and I have had relatives come up and instead of floating on the inner tube on the Oxbow, swim the whole thing. Have fun doing it, right? We had one relative come up and we took her up to the South Falls, paddled up and hiked up to the falls and come back down. Instead of getting back in the canoe, she just slipped in the water and swam all the way back to the campsite on the flowage. She's pretty proud of it. It was an interesting experience. This is some relatives of mine, of ours, that They spent the whole day here floating, and they go up to the top and they float down here, the little girls and the boys and the beanie babies and everybody would float down. And then they come around here and climb out, walk the gravel bar up, and they'd float again. We did that, and they went down the river a little bit, floated around in the eddy that's down there, and a circulating whirlpool. It's an amazing way to experience a river. This is my son. We went out to the Menominee River, north of Florence at Bull Rapids and to see the artwork, and I'll get to that. But yeah, you know, it's a hot day and this is low flow on the Menominee. We went and there's a nice rock you can hang on to and let the water flow past you, or you can go up there to the top of it and ride the waves down with your PFT on, and hopefully you can swim back the land. This is Sitting Rock at the end of LaSalle Gorge Rapids. My friend from Maine here and I were playing in the rapids, and we come down here and sit on that rock. I sit on that rock a lot of times. And you can sit where his feet are down in the water, and the water just flows around and lay back in it, experiencing a flowing water. Or you can go over just beyond that. There's a big old pool of circulating water by the end of the Portage Trail from LaSalle Gorge. And you can float around and around and around and around, or you can get out, there's gravel over there. So on. On a low flow day, you can go to Pine River, and this is where Halls Creek enters the Pine, just below you can start at just at the end of the rapids and float all the way down, especially during the drawdown when there's fast moving waters together. You can still just swim or float all the way down to the flowage. Okay, you can do a sit river event. This is my son and my grandson. We're climbing down the steps by the generating station and go into the water, and you bring your white bucket and your aquarium net, and you scoop up invertebrates and look at them. You spend a good part of that day not going down the river, but just sitting in the river. This is Emerald Arch. It's a really fun thing about the place on the Menominee where Bull Rapids is. The North Shore has not only an excellent beach to hang out on at low water, or it has all these rocks to put up to make your own art. And this happens regularly at this place. People build these fantastic things, and then the high water comes and they're all gone, and you can rebuild them again or build different ones. It's a really fun place. There's all sorts of things you can do with ephemeral arts. When I did. Here's another one. Wind comes by, blows it all away. You had fun during that day. How about this? You can go canoeing, you can go boating at night. A full moon, warm summer night, calm night. You can go around the oxbow and you can almost see things, but not quite. It's pretty fun. But it's really fun if you put a bat translator on the front of the bow. And here you go. This is a bat translator. This is one I picked up out of Rhinelander when they used to do this for surveys. But now you can buy them, and this is on the handout there. And you put them on your bow of the boat, and it takes the squeakings of bats and lowers it down to an audio range where you can hear it. And then it identifies it, just like the Merlin app for birds. you go along, it's like either silverhead or like haired or a big brown. And then some of them actually plotted out for you, and this is our trip. We went from the Oxbow around, and there's a landing down there, it's really hard to find, you have to take the GPS. But it said, identified the bats along the way and plotted it out on a map. You can use a pole, here's a pole, here's a canoe pole, here's my canoe pole. And it's got a metal end, and it's really a nice way to go upriver or to go downriver on the low flow. This is me coming up the Menominee. I came all the way up the Menominee here to near Amberg, mostly paddling and poling along. But a little easier stunt is to just go up on the Pine River. You get in on the County Park landing. Off Goodman Grade, and you hold low water, paddle up the Camp One Rapids, which are, if you try to come to them downriver, there's an impenetrable wall of boulders. But over on the river right, which is the left bank, from our view, is a nice camp spot. It's been used forever, from before Wild Rivers legislation. And you can go there, and you can also float around in this pool, nice big swimming hole there. And then you turn around, just float back on down to your car. You don't have to do any shoveling. Pull up river, glide down river. You can play with a canoe and a pole. You can play. You can go up a river or down a river like Pac-Man. You go sideways and back and over this. And I spent the whole day, went over there and back down here, and I would not recommend standing until you've tried it. Sitting. But here's a fun way if you got precious cargo in the front seat. Here's a pole. Get them down there without endangering the cargo. Ready? You ready? Here we go. Woo-hoo! We did that many times that day. You can hike on the trail where there are no trails. And GPS and your compass. This hike is between Breakwater Falls and LaSalle Falls, and it's a nice hike. It's not very far. You can go up and come back. You get a little wet. You cross Halls Creek, but it's very doable. This is a nice place to visit. This is the island in the middle of Big Wolf Falls at really low water. And you can cross that. There's some risk to life and limb. You slip and fall going on over the falls, but take a pole and some shoes. You can walk in water and you go on up. Across the shallow part, and you go over and these magical places where there's rock formations, and then the other side of the rapids of the falls that you rarely see can be accessed. Well, you can boat across the river there, but whatever you do, you got to get there without going down the falls. It's a big falls. There's a walk-in access on the Popple River that's signed. It's off the East River Road. Instead of walking straight down to Chancellor Rapids there, I take the gradual path and end up in kind of a magical place. How about this one? When the water is this low, the picture on the left is the bottom end of the gorge rapid. When it's that low, when you have flat stones out there like a pavement, you can walk all the way up to the south. Take some water shoes, take a pole for balance. You will do some wading like he's doing there. But you go all the way up and all the way back on the trail or come back down on the river side. So you can also go on the north side of the south. You can hike in there, or you can take a boat down and pull it off, and you can see LaSalle Falls from the north side, place that is not usually on the guy, on the trail, kind of visit LaSalle. Breakwater Falls has a number of things, generally you go down the gorge trail, and then you get to a point and you go up to back to your car up a hill to the service road. But when it's really low, you can walk all the way down to the generating station, up and around and cross the river. Outflow from the generating station, go up the stairs to your car. But it has just the best example of Michigami slate rock outcrop there. And you can only see it when the water's low. It's kind of a fun alternative. The north side of Breakwater Falls has many things that you can access, especially at low flow. This is the first drop. It's the big rock that's often available for picnicking and stuff like that. This is the second drop. It's just a magical place. You have to kind of jump over a creek there sometimes. You can also go see on this lower left, there's a picture of the dike that the logging era made, keep the water from flowing down the back channel. Some sneaks through there and has these little gorgeous little waterfalls back there. And there's a big rock, it's a little bit further down that pinches the gorge rapids and makes high, big standing waves at high water, but it's there, you can sit on there and listen to everything happening. And there's also, for the adventuresome few who want to, well, that upper left picture is the back channel waterfall. But you can hike to the top of the bluff. There's no trail. It's kind of tough. Yeah. Unless you're prepared to, if you're ready to take the GPS and so on. It's a wonderful place at the top of the bluff. Once you get there, you can go in winter. Many people go in winter, off to see our river and our falls in winter. Beautiful place. Camping, couple little mentions of camping. We have rivers that flow along the border between Wisconsin and Michigan, and islands in the middle of the river on the border do not belong to Michigan or Wisconsin. They belong to the BLM. They're federal land. Islands in the middle of a border river, and BLM allows you to camp free on there unless it's specifically posted. This is the island by Bull Falls, north of Florence. Energies has an interesting camping policy. They say you can camp anywhere on their flowages. This is off the pine forage. This is Energies land near Halls Creek. You camp there one night. You paddle in, no motors, no trace camping. Don't mess it up for other people. And you camp a lot of places you never thought you could. This is the Charles LaSalle site of his, in the vicinity of the site of his 1869 trading post. It is private land. But you can talk with owners and should, if you can go down and see that point or stay at that point overnight and you're explain what you're doing, it's available with permission. Okay, I have one more parting message. Flowing water is what we call river. It embraces time, seasons, temperature. It connects rivers to rain, plants, animals, and humans, to everything above the ground, below the ground, up into the sky. It is beautiful. It is lovely. Enjoy rivers. They are a gift. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for John?